Let's talk about how to interpret basic Python components and scripts. The basic Python code to interact with NetConf is this. So if you want to work with NetConf, you will need to know exactly what each part of this code does what. So let's go and see the first part from NC Client. What is NC Client? NC Client is a Python library that will let you create NetConf clients. Remember that for the NetConf standard, the devices that you want to work with are servers, and your scripts or your programs or your applications at your NetConf client. So NC Client will let you create scripts, Python scripts, that will act as NetConf clients, and you'll have to install it because most of Linux distribution will not have it installed by default. So you have to use your appropriate Linux installation application. Now the next part, what is this? What is import manager? What is manager? Manager is a Python module. So when you install the NC Client library, you will be installing this module as well. So when you are using this import keyword in Python, you're telling Python that you want to use the available methods within classes or the available functions that this module is providing. So in this case, you are instructing Python to use whatever is included in the manager module. And something that can create confusion is that within that module exists a manager class. This is the manager class that will help you interact with Python. So this can lead to some confusion, but it is just a class that happens to have the same name as the module. So what is M? You will usually see that this construct usually ends with as M. It is an object of class manager that happens to have the variable name M. It can have any name you want it, but it is usually M for manager. What exactly connect does? It is not a method of the manager class, because you can have that feeling that it is a method because you see a dot here and you see manager here, but it is actually a function that lives within the manager module. So you are indicating the module and then a function that you want to work with. It is actually an alias. If you see the actual code within the manager module, the connect function is an alias that points to connect secure shell. So you are actually using this function, and this function, it is known as a class factory function. Class factory functions have the objective of creating objects for you. So the connect function will create an object for you. So you don't have to create a manager object by yourself, because you will need to execute this code each time. So it is somewhat complex. You could create, if you wanted to, your manager objects manually, but the connect function is there for you. So just let the connect function be a class factory and create an object for you. And the object that the connect will be creating, you will be storing it in the M variable. Next, why are we using with? The with statement in Python will automatically call this method after creating an object. And after the code finishes, with will call this author method, that is the exit method within this class. So we're talking about the manager class here. So the manager actually implements the enter method and the exit method. But why are we using this? The objective of this is to free resources, because you don't want your programs to accommodate resources and then keeping them and not freeing them. So you can use this, for instance, if you want to open a file and you don't want to leave that file open, you want to close it. And in the case of NETCONF, you want to open a session, but you don't want to leave a session open after your program finishes. You want to close your sessions, because remember that, for instance, many devices only support 4 sessions. You don't want to give to have zombie sessions or idle sessions, whatever you want to call them. You want to close your sessions when your program finishes. So make sure to do that. Even if an exception is thrown, remember that when programming, software exceptions can be thrown in order to terminate your program because something catastrophic happened. So even in an exception is thrown, we will call the exit method in order to close the NETCONF sessions. So we are making sure that the resources are getting free. You could do the same the old way, doing this way of programming, creating your object, then trying your code, and at the end of your code, closing the session. And even if an exception is thrown here, this finally statement will catch it and will execute session. This code does the same, but notice that it is more compact and easier to read with using the with statement. So when you call connect, you have to supply several parameters. Notice that this is a Python method of way of calling a function, because you can establish what parameter is what. Other languages won't allow you to do that, but Python will let you tell exactly what parameter is doing what. So in this case, host will tell you that you have to supply the IP address of the device you want to work with, the NETCONF server, the port number, a username and password that is available in your NETCONF server. And this host key verify will tell your NETCONF server to validate that you are a valid client. Some NETCONF servers will go and look within the secure shell host file to see if your IP address is included there for security. But if you don't want your NETCONF server to validate your IP address, just set it to false. And then device parameters is a code that will identify your NETCONF server, and you can pick it up from these values. For instance, if you're going to work with a Nexus device, use this value. And you can also use values for other vendors. Remember that NETCONF is a standard and any vendor can implement it, not only Cisco. Now, going for a real example of a Python script that reads from the running config, you will use the getConfig method from the manager class. You will need an object from the manager class in order to run this method. And remember that connect is a class factory that will provide you with a method of the manager, an object of the manager class, and it will store it in the variable name m. So you will use m as your object, and having an object, you can run a method. So in this case, you will have to establish your NETCONF data store and your filter. If you may choose not to use a filter, but you will get a big block of code, and you are interested in just part of the configuration, you can establish a filter. Your filter will be written in XML, and you have to establish all the paths of containers that are found between you and the variable that you want to retrieve. And don't forget to establish the correct namespace, the path, to reach your variable and the namespace are included in the YAML file. So you have to have the YAML file handy, and you have to know how to read it in order to create this filter. In order to write into the configuration, you will have to use the edit config method. You should create your all your paths in order to find the variable. For instance, if this were an IP address, you will set this value to the IP address, for instance 10.1.1.1. Make sure to use the correct namespace. You will need to have your YAML file that correspond to your device handy in order to know this namespace, know this ID, and know all the paths. And you have to establish what is the data store that you want to work with in NETCONF. We'll have to check this in the lab.